Well, good afternoon. This lesson is lesson 2, ER diagrams, and pretty much ER diagrams are a little self-explanatory. But before I ever dive down into dealing with the ER diagram, let me do note that I did, once again, I did change it around a little bit to something more cleaner. As I was going through the project, I was looking at my previous ER diagram and I kind of found it a little bit wrong, and kind of a little bit clunky and hard to understand, at least from my point. So here it is. So bear with me. So we had example number 5. My partner was Brandon Brown. And so as you can see here, this is our question that we had on hand. So if you wanted to pause it, I give you just ample time to pause it. But diving down into it, we do have our ER diagram. Bear with me, I can't draw. At least I don't have any software that I know that I can use to draw with it. But here is our ER diagram. And let me get into it. And let me tell you exactly why I changed my ER diagram up in a little bit and explain it all. So, for one, let's start with employee. Employee to skill. I made employee to skill a mini optional to a mandatory 1. And because if you refer back to the question, it did say an employee is designated to have 1 primary skill. So it is mandatory to have 1 skill. But there may be other employees with that same skill. So from that point on, because of the there may be, I made a optional many, because there may be, there may be employee A and employee F have this same skill set. And so I made that for cardinality wise, I made that an optional many. The second change I made was I made project or employee to project. I made that an optional 1 for the employee side. So here's the optional 1 as it stated. And I made it a mini optional, as you can see here. Now, I made that a mini optional because the employee can have the project, like it said in the beginning. The employee can be associated with 1 project. He could be associated with 2, 3. If he was a workaholic, he could be associated with 4 or 5. But it also stated in the question that he may not even be assigned to that at the moment. So I made it optional on both sides because it is optional for that 1 employee to be assigned to a project. It may be optional to assign to numerous projects, or it may be not optional to sign with or be assigned to any of them. So for maximum cardinality wise, I made that project, I made that a many, the employee, the 1 optional. And for the last element, it is the billing rate for which they are charged. The billing rate is dependent upon the skill. So from that point on, you can go ahead and say it is a weak entity and you can actually tie it into the skill. But for this thing, I made it a 1-to-1 relationship. So the thing about ER diagrams, you pretty much want to know what kind of relationships you have heading into the whole process of drawing it, writing it down, making it on a program like I did and whatnot. And you want to know that in hand before you go into it. Another thing you want to do is to always make sure you are reading the question, because at first glance, originally when I first did it, as I went through the course, first thing I did, I looked at it, I said, oh, okay. And I put on something, and when I went back and I was going into it and I was looking back at my examples, I'm like, this is not quite right. So you always want to make note of the type of question that it is displaying when it's asking it. And that's pretty much, the gist of it. It's not really necessarily hard. And as I scroll down on the PDF, I just, put in notes of what the changes I made, and I gave my reasonings for it. And that's pretty much it. Have a good one.